Hiyo, welcome back. I am Jason, and today I wanted to talk about some of the things that's going on with your camper that would cause you to trip the breaker inside of your house when you first bring it home or any other time. I've gotten a few comments lately asking why their camper keeps tripping the breaker inside their RV when they bring it home to plug it in. And what they're asking is, why is it tripping the breaker inside the house on a 15 amp breaker? While there could be a ton of different reasons, we're going to go over just a few on how that could happen. Before breaking it down, you most likely have one of two different types of RVs. One is a 30 amp and one is a 50 amp. Now the differences between the 30 amp and the 50 amp in this scenario are not that much different. Really is how many accessories do you have and what are you trying to run? Most of all the questions that I'm getting is, why can't I run one AC on my RV on my 15 amp plug inside of my house? Now the factors there really depend on what you got going on inside of your home and what you expect out of your rig while you have it parked. So first, let's talk about your rig. What do you really want out of it? If you're looking at running just one AC, so you want to keep it cool inside of your RV, or you want to run the heater and you want to keep it warm. Just one thing, that's all you want to run. So you're going to plug up your camper, you're going to put it onto a little converter, and you're going to run that to your house. Once you have that run to your house, you're going to plug it into the wall, and you're going to expect whatever you want to run. So let's say in this case, all I want to run is just one air conditioner. So I'm going to hook up my camper and plug it into the house. Now, typically what one air conditioner is going to run is at about 12 to 14 amps. So all that makes sense, right? You only need 14 amps. You're hooking it into the house and it's 15 amps. So you should have plenty, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case. Yes, your air conditioner is only going to pull about 12 to 14 amps. I know inside of my rig I have my refrigerator and I'll leave that turned on. Now, if I have it set to auto and it's going to pull electricity, that's something else that's running that I may not be aware of. Another item inside of my RV that I have to factor in is the converter. So whenever I am plugged into shore power, it's constantly charging my battery. And because it's charging the battery, that means that is another draw or another added piece to it. So with that being said, how do I know how many amps I'm really pulling so that I know what I'm asking out of my house? To do that, I have a meter inside of my RV so that I know how many amps I'm pulling. There's a link down in the description below about a video about us installing that and what it does for us. By having that meter, I can see how many amps I'm pulling. Because of having that, I know that my air conditioner only pulls about 12 to 13 amps. And I also know that my refrigerator pulls about 3, only when it needs to cool, but it does. It pulls 3 when it needs it. And my converter is pulling about a half an amp to an amp when it is running and charging the battery. So if my air conditioner is pulling 13 amps, and my refrigerator needs 3 amps every so often, and my converter needs 1 amp, if you put all that together, I'm running about 17 amps. Now, all those systems aren't going to demand all that at the same time all the time. But if the air conditioner is running, the refrigerator needs to cool off, and the battery needs to be charged a little bit more, you can look at a little bit more demand. So because of that, if I'm pulling 17 amps and I'm running on a 15 amp breaker, you can see where the breaker inside the house may trip. Now let's talk about the house side. You're going to plug into a 15 amp circuit or a 15 amp wall plug, the typical one that you would plug a light into or anything like that inside of your house. Typically, the reason people call it 15 amp is because most of those are 15 amp, but there's some things that you need to think about here. Most of the time inside of your house, when you connect into that wall outlet, that outlet is not the only thing that has something on that circuit. So what do I mean by that circuit? That means that one breaker that controls that outlet. So if you go inside of your 15 amp breaker and you find that one that turns off the circuit to that outlet, that one that you're going to plug your RV into, then you need to find out what else that circuit turns off. So let's use this scenario. You're going to plug into an outlet that is in your garage, and that's what you want to power your RV with. And then you're going to go inside of your breaker box and you're going to find out which breaker turns off the outlet that you want to plug into. Then you go back to the garage and you find out that your TV turned off, your coffee maker isn't running, and the outlets that you're going to use for power tools doesn't work anymore. Well, all those things that could be used on that circuit, that one circuit breaker, needs to be all added up together, including your RV. So now you're looking at a TV, a coffee maker, power tools at a bench, and now your RV on top of all of that. And if you take the amperage of all of those and put it together, you're going to be well over the 15 amps. And because of that, every time that the air conditioner on the RV tries to turn on, it's going to trip that breaker and everything is going to stop. Like I said, everybody's scenario is a little bit different and where you're going to plug in. Some have distances of about 50 feet or 10 feet or 12 feet or 100 feet, depending on all that stuff. So you're looking at extension cords and everything else. And all that adds together in how many amps you're going to pull, how many volts need to run, and all that stuff to keep your RV running on a 15 amp circuit breaker. So here's what I suggest. It's something that I did. This is my experience, and I don't know about all yours, but here's the experience on mine. I consulted an electrician and got them to help me out here. I ran a dedicated circuit. That means one circuit breaker inside of my circuit panel goes to one outlet, and that one outlet is for my RV only. And because my travel trailer or my RV or my rig is a 30 amp only rig, I asked the electrician to help me out, set it up so that it's 30 amp plug. So the plug that I have at my house is just like what you would find at a campsite. I take my rig, I plug it into my surge protector, I plug that directly into that plug on the outside of my house, and I know without a doubt that I have everything that I need to run whatever it is inside of my RV. And it's just like I'm out camping at a campground. So here's a few reasons why I wanted to do that. I have a dedicated outlet now, so I don't have to worry about if I plug anything else inside of my house, it's going to affect my RV. I was highly conscious about that. I didn't want to melt anything down or cause a problem from overheating and having a fire inside of my house or creating a problem with my RV itself. So if I could recommend anything to you guys out there, consult an electrician and get a dedicated outlet that is built for your RV. So as I was talking about earlier in the video, your rig may be a 30 amp or a 50 amp. So whatever you're putting in there, ask the electrician to help you work something out so that it can handle the load or everything on your RV. They will be able to look at distances and types of wires and what kind of plugs and what kind of circuit breaker and all that stuff to keep you safe and to keep your house and your rig safe as well. Now I know when you first bought your RV, you may not have factored all this in to the cost of what you need to have your rig and where it's all at, and you may not have that ability to be able to plug into a house. I'm parked at my house and I have everything set up right there so that I'm good to go. But for those of you who may not have that luxury and you're parked somewhere where all you have is a 15 amp plug, then I recommend putting something inside of your RV so that you can monitor how many amps you're pulling. You may have to go into the breaker panel inside of the RV itself and turn some of the stuff off so that you can run the AC or whatever else it is that you want to run, and you can stay below that 15 amp need. Now to the video that I have down in the description, that is actually installing in something inside of your RV so that you can monitor it. But you don't necessarily have to do that if you want to stick to just the 15 amps and knowing where you are inside of that regular household plug. There's a tool called Kill a Watt, or KILL-A-Watt. It's a little thing that you can plug into your wall, and then you can plug whatever into it, and it'll tell you how many volts that you have, how many amps you're using, and all kinds of other information. And with that tool, you don't necessarily have to go messing with your rig or plugging something in or cutting holes and all that stuff like I did. You can just directly plug it into the wall and then plug your rig into it, and you'll know kind of what you're using. I'll leave a link down in the description below if you're interested in buying one of those so that you know what you're using. If you have other ways that you manage your electricity for your rig at your house or wherever you keep it parked, then leave those down in the comments below. So I hope this answers some of your questions about how you can manage your RV on a 15 amp circuit. So until the next time, keep your rig safe. Hope to see you out there on the road, and God bless.